Welcome back to the review space. This is part 4 of the top 100 video games by Metascore, and this should be the final one because we are gonna basically go from 81 to 100. We last left off at number 80, so finally we get to page 3 of this top 100 games, at least according to the Metascore. So we're gonna move on to number 81 of the top 100 games according to Metascore from Metacritic.com. From listchallenges.com. Number 81. Number 81 is Skylanders Swap Force. Okay, this is a big surprise. A Skylanders game on the top 100 Metascore highest score games on this list. This is quite a surprise. Now, admittedly, I never really got into the Skylanders thing. I remember there was big hype around it, or some kind of it was a bit of a commercial success when the Skylanders thing was released several years ago, and Skylanders kind of became it was a hit. It was a hit amongst a younger demographic and amongst a younger fan base, younger gamers. So Skylanders Swap Force, I've never even really heard of this game. I remember the first Skylanders game with the gimmick toys and all that, the little figures that you could use in the game. But as far as Swap Force, I really don't have much experience with it. I mean, the characters look pretty cool. They look kind of interesting. You know, all this stuff like Skylanders and stuff like that, they kind of remind me, for some reason, they remind me a lot of Neopets from back in the day. You know, like Neopets used to be... Oh, I mean, I think Neopets is still around, but Neopets is basically this web online video game where you could choose monsters, like different monster creatures, and you can make them battle each other and stuff like that. And you can, it was pretty much like an online, sort of an RPG, almost like an online version of Pokemon in some ways. But anyway, Skylanders, yeah, I never got into the series, so I don't know. I mean, I guess a younger demographic would get into it, but I'm quite surprised that it's number 81, one of the highest Metascore games, highest Metacritic Metascore titles ever. It's number 81 out of all the games ever released in the history of the world that has a Metascore a Metascore ranking on Metacritic. Like, this is number 81. That's kind of wild. Number 82. Number 82 is PacMan Championship Edition DX. I think I talked about this already in a previous list. I forget if it was the top 100 PS3 games. It's probably the top 100 PlayStation 3 games back in the day. I'm not even sure if that's the right one. But anyway, Championship Edition DX, I do not care about Pac-Man. I was never even a fan of it back in the day, like, the original arcade game and all that. So I never grew up on Pac-Man. I never got into it. It was never a childhood game for me. I mean, I always heard about it when I was growing up in the 90s. But even back then, I never even had any Pac-Man games, you know what I mean? Like, I had some of the older ones. I had some other old arcade games from back in the day, but not Pac-Man. Like, I remember like Space Invaders and stuff like that. But with Pac-Man, I never really played it as a kid. So as far as this game being number 82 in the top 100 games by Metascore, it's absolutely nuts. You know what I mean? I prefer games like Tetris and stuff like that anyway. Like, as far as like the old 80s games, give me Tetris any day. Number 83 is Street Fighter Alpha 3. Okay, on the PS1, Street Fighter Alpha 3. Yeah, I mean, I got this on the Street Fighter Alpha collection on the PlayStation 2. Yeah, I dig Alpha 3. It's a pretty good game. Out of that whole Alpha series, Alpha 2 was really good. Like, Alpha 2, and I played that one the most overall. Like, even that one came out on the Super Nintendo back in the day. Even though the version really wasn't that amazing. But Alpha 2 was great. Like, the first Alpha was kind of not a bad, like, first installment. Like, it was alright, kind of flashy, some new characters. But it felt a little bit, it just didn't have that many stuff going on. Like, as far as, like, the stages and stuff like that, and the character selection, it was okay. And then Alpha 2 kind of improved it. They added a little bit more characters. You got some Final Fight characters in there. And, it was a good fighting game. Maybe the Alpha series is not as good as the original Street Fighter 2, just in terms of everything. I mean, like, the sound effects, the voiceovers, the catchphrases, the soundtrack was really good on Street Fighter 2. I mean, everything was pretty much iconic, you know, even the animations and all that. It was very distinct, and it was so influential. So when the Alpha series came around, Alpha 1, Alpha 2, and then Alpha 3, it was like, okay, this is pretty good, but it's more of the same. It's a little bit flashier, like more cel-shaded looking characters, and additional characters, but you know the music is not as good. The soundtrack overall has never been as good as the original Street Fighter 2 series, and the voice acting is just not as good. You know, the little catchphrases and all that. It just there was a lot of things that was kind of missing from the Street Fighter Alpha series that the original Street Fighter 2 had. Even though the gameplay was still faster paced and just as fast as ever, very white knuckle action, very cool fighting engine in the 2D fighting style. So Alpha 3 is a good game, especially for the PS1 era. You know, this is the kind of fighting game that never made it to the N64 and all that, which is why in many ways the PS1 and the Sega Saturn, they had better fighting games. Basically, you know, they had better fighting game experiences, and that's one of my favorite genre. And unfortunately, the N64 never really had these kind of 2D, really cool looking fighting games back in the day. They had a few exclusives, like a Killer Instinct Gold, but really not that many interesting fighting titles. But anyway, yeah, this one came out on the PS1. This one might have also come out on the Sega Saturn. I could be wrong on that, but typical Capcom, putting out like multiple, Alpha series, 3-part Alpha series, and then multiple parts of Street Fighter 3, multiple parts of Street Fighter 2, and all that. Alpha 3 it's a good game. It's a good fighting game. It's a good installment in the Alpha series, but I feel like, aside from the graphics and all that, different stages, it feels very similar to the other Alpha games, and it's a nice addition to have as far as the Street Fighter Alpha collection. But as a game by itself, number 83, that's pretty high. You know what I mean? That's a pretty high score, and maybe it's not my first choice as far as like the Street Fighter or any of the Capcom fighting games. It's not necessarily my first choice. Like Alpha 3 to me is, being ranked number 83 in the top 100 Metascore of all time is, it's pretty high, a little too high for me. But it is a decent fighting game. Number 84 is Unreal Tournament 2004. Man, I've played two Unreal. I have two Unreal Tournament games. I have Unreal Tournament 3, which I really enjoy on the PlayStation 3, and Unreal Tournament 2 or something like that. Unreal Tournament. Well, one of the ones that came out on the original Xbox, but it's like part 2. And gosh, what is it called again? Because I know I have it. I never played it that much. I prefer Unreal Tournament better on the Unreal Tournament 3, I should say. I prefer that better. But I have one of the. I think it's a championship or something. Unreal is it Unreal Championship on the original Xbox? Hold on, Unreal. Okay, so there's Unreal Championship on the original Xbox. Yes, that's the one. Unreal Championship 2, the Leandri Conflict. Oh yeah, with the hot chick on the cover. Yeah, that's very sexy. The chick on the right, very beautiful. But yeah, it's a first and third person shooter. That's right, I remember. It had third person shooter elements. And of course, yeah, published by Midway. Midway had a little bit of. I'm sure Midway probably had influence on the third-person thing because they did that with The Suffering. The Suffering had a bit of that third-person thing. Like the Suffering, I have ties that bind. It has a first-person shooter element, but it also had a third-person kind of melee thing going on. So yeah, I have this one, Unreal Championship 2, the Leandri Conflict, which I didn't like that much. I thought it was an okay shooter. Yeah, it's not bad for the original Xbox, but I would rather play Unreal Tournament 3. But anyway, this is Unreal Tournament 2004. This one I don't ever really remember playing. I don't think I've ever played this one from 2004. Unreal Tournament 2004. I've never tried that one. So it looks pretty cool, man. It looks like one of those sweet. It's right up my alley as far as the Unreal Tournament series and all that. I'm a fan of that. I like that sci-fi stuff. I like that sci-fi. It's basically the sequel to Unreal Tournament 2003. Oh wow. Okay, so and then the sequel is Unreal Tournament 3, the one that came out in 2007, the one that I really like on the PS3. So this one is a game that came out previously. Okay, so that's interesting. Okay, yeah, March 2004 when it dropped. I mean, I'm a fan of Unreal Tournament 3. That's my favorite Unreal game. So as far as 2004 is concerned, I'm sure it's a cool game when it came out back in the day. This one looks like it was a PC game. Yeah, Microsoft Windows, OS X, and Linux. It's a PC computer game, basically. Cool. Unreal Tournament 2004, never got into it, but I am a big fan of Unreal Tournament 3. Alright, number 85 is Braid. I've heard of Braid. I don't know. I mean, I just don't care about these games that's like, I think this one is a downloadable, or some kind of a download type game. So, I've heard of Braid, but I never really got into it, and I have absolutely no interest in it. So, no idea, no clue, not interested. Sorry. Number 86 is God of War 2. Heck yeah, God of War 2, man. Of course. I mean, I would rank this a lot higher on this list, but I mean, it's one of my favorite games of all time, and I rank this as one of the greatest, if not the top PlayStation 2 game. When this came out back in 2007, I can't believe it's almost 11 years when this game dropped. I mean, over 10 years ago. I still remember when it came out. It got such a big. There was a lot of hype around it because the first God of War was so well received. So when this dropped around, like, I think spring 2007, I forget if it was like around March 07, but I was so excited for it. I was so pumped for it, and then I finally got it. Like, I got it not too long after it came out, like maybe a couple of months. And so I played it the year that it came out, and it was so dope. Like, it was so enjoyable, and I thought it was overall a better experience than the first God of War. Aside from, I mean, like, the story was not as good. The story kind of got convoluted, and that was the beginning of, like, God of War, the God of War storyline getting kind of lame and kind of weird and kind of stupid. But aside from that, God of War 1 had better story, but God of War 2 had better everything else, like better gameplay, better weapons and abilities. Graphics were slightly better. The presentation was better. Like the music was more epic, more boss fights. The stage designs were even better looking and more cool. So God of War 2 was an epic action adventure title. That's the kind of game that I could play again and again and again, multiple times. If I ever lose my copy or whatever, I'll buy it again and again. And I mean, I got it on the PS3 as well as part of the the God of War collection and all that. But I haven't really played it yet on the PlayStation 3 console, like the HD remakes and all that. Well, one day I'll do it, but I got it on the PS2. Really loved it on the PS2. It was just an epic experience. Like everything about this, it's such a hyper masculine game. It's so alpha male. It's so Kratos is your typical, like, kind of an anti-hero type of character, but I guess he's more babyface than heel. I mean, so he's more of a hero than a villain, but there's definitely shades of anti-hero in there where some of the things that he does, he doesn't really care about anybody aside from, like, his family. And even his family felt his wrath, like, at the beginning. Like, that's why he became such a messed up character. I guess maybe he was messed up from the beginning. Anyway. God of War 2, great title. In my opinion, it's better than the first God of War, better than Devil May Cry, and better than just about any other action-adventure game, Bayonetta and all that stuff. I mean, I like those games. I like those games generally, but God of War 2 to me is like one of the pinnacles of gaming. As far as that genre is concerned, as far as the action-adventure presentation, as far as that gameplay, because it's like fast-paced, lots of abilities. It's pretty difficult. Some people might say, "Oh, it's too easy. God of War's too easy. It's no challenge." Well, these are probably the same type of people that never played it. on harder difficulty. Try to play it on in the hardest mode, and the most difficult setting. And God of War 2 will beat you down constantly. It's very difficult. It's one of the toughest games ever. It's just as tough as any of the other action adventure games or any of the hack and slash games like Ninja Gaiden on the original Xbox. You know what I mean? Like it's difficult. Like it can be something that's very punishing. You got to do it over and over again. So yeah, God of War 2. Awesome experience. They're not. I don't think they're ever gonna make games like this ever again. Like as far as like how epic this game was and how much of a pinnacle this was for the PS2. Like what a great swan song for the PlayStation 2. You know, but by the time God of War 2 came out, the PS2 was on its way out as far as the system. It was pretty much like, you know, like 7 years had gone by, and it was. You know, it was the era of the PS3 and the Xbox 360 and the Wii at that point, but by early 2007. So the PS2 was pretty much done. And but this was one of the final final gems on the PlayStation 2. All right, number 87 is StarCraft 2: Wings of Liberty. Never played this one, so don't really know much about it. It looks pretty cool. I remember watching like all the cutscenes because I am a StarCraft fan. I loved the original StarCraft and Brood War from the late 90s. You know, I played that when I was growing up in the early 2000s when I was in high school, and even a little bit after high school, like around 2006, 2007. So, you know, StarCraft was an awesome experience. I would have put StarCraft in this list easily, you know. But as far as it being number 87, yeah, I mean, it's a sequel and all that, so I never really got too much. I never really, I don't know how well made this game is. I mean, it looks dope. It looks like a pretty cool game. I remember when StarCraft 2 came out back in, I want to say 2010, so it's been over 7 years. And I remember wanting to play it because, I was a big fan of the original StarCraft series. But I didn't really have the gaming PC for it, the gaming setup for it. So my computer was not up to par, and I just didn't have the money and really installing everything, and just so I didn't have really the access to it, and so even though it's been 7 years, I guess I could still try to get it, but it's been 7 years. Like I feel like I just missed out on StarCraft 2. And that's pretty sad because even with the original StarCraft, like at least I got a chance to play that and really like get into it. But StarCraft 2, not so much. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Number 88 is SSX. I guess this is the first SSX. I mean, SSX is the gameplay is not bad. The whole snowboarding thing is all right. It's not my favorite type of racing game because it's for the most part it's like going down a mountain with snow, and that's pretty much the general gist of these titles. Is that's what the game is. But and so I don't snowboard in real life. I've never snowboarded in real life, so it's a sport that I never really got into. But as far as SSX, I mean, this is the first installment. I'm sure good graphics, good music, good gameplay. I'm sure it had all of that. I think I have one of the games on the GameCube. I don't know if it was SSX Tricky or one of those titles. So it's snowboarding action. Probably one of the more better received snowboarding titles. But I mean, like when I was growing up, I remember games like 1080p snowboarding and stuff like that. The AMP series. I think I already mentioned this before, but SSX was well received for the time. I mean, obviously this is not in reference to the later SSX game. I think they came out with an updated or some kind of reboot SSX game a few years ago on the newer consoles and all that. So I don't know, They just want to rehash everything, so they just want to call it the same exact title, SSX, But this is, from what I understand, this is the original from the early 2000s. All right, number 89 is Minecraft. Oh man, Minecraft. Yeah. I heard a lot about this game over the years. Obviously, as a gamer, I mean, you can't really escape Minecraft, as far as hearing about it. But and I made a list a few years ago. Maybe around 2013, the top 10 most overrated games of all time, and I did not include Minecraft. And I remember some people in the comment section saying, "Hey, what about Minecraft? You should have included Minecraft on the list." But I never played Minecraft, so I don't know. So that's why I didn't include it, is because I never really experienced Minecraft. Not even on the PlayStation 3 or the Xbox 360, and it has come out in later on. Initially, it was a computer game, and then later on, in following years, it came out on PS3, eventually in the Xbox 360. So I can get it, but it's like, I don't want to drop $20 when Minecraft came out on the PlayStation 3. Like, I wasn't feeling it, or the Xbox 360, the 360 edition, the PS3 edition, and all that. I just didn't feel like I wasn't interested enough in it. I think there was a time, maybe a few years ago, where it's like, maybe I should give it a try. Maybe I should try to play Minecraft, but at the same time, I wasn't a fan of the graphics, and I wasn't the idea of the gameplay. I wasn't really that crazy into, as far as like digging and building stuff and constructing things. It just wasn't my genre. I'm more into action games, goal oriented, some kind of boss fights and fighting and combat and stuff like that. Instead of with Minecraft seems more exploration, maybe a little bit of combat here and there. I mean, depending on the situation. But Minecraft to me is it's not my kind of game. It seems like a game for a younger audience, a younger demographic, kids, small children, and stuff like that. So Minecraft to me feels like it really feels like a Nintendo type of game. So really not into it. Number 90 is Persona 4 Golden. Oh, a Persona game. Yeah, I got the fighting game, the Persona 4 fighting title, which I thought is it's okay. It's kind of a generic fighter, but Persona 4, this one is it looks like it's the PS Vita version. So I don't know if Golden ever came out on the other consoles or the the other systems, but this one looks like the PS Vita version. I don't have a PS Vita, so I don't know. I've never played any of the Persona games, and I'm not really interested in it. I'm not big into Japanese RPGs. Like, JRPGs to me are they were a hot thing back in the late 90s because of Final Fantasy VII and all that, but I never got into it, and I never really grew up on it. There was a few RPGs that I like from Japan, something like a Super Mario RPG is probably my favorite JRPG of all time, if you want to count that as a JRPG. And then there's a few ones that I enjoyed over the years, like Dragon Quest V or Bahamut Lagoon, certain titles here and there. But Persona 4 Golden, never really got into it, and I've never really been interested in the Persona series. It's just not my thing. Number 91 is Homeworld. Homeworld, I heard about this from back in the day. It's a 3D real-time strategy. It says right there, advertised. From what I understand, Homeworld is kind of like it's like a sim, some kind of strategy game regarding these space ships or space bases in outer space, and basically ships in outer space. This futuristic, kind of a Star Trek kind of thing going on, like a Star Trek setting, or even something like Star Wars, where you have these I guess ships in outer space, and you're strategizing, and it's a PC game. So I'm not a PC gamer growing up. So this is one of those titles that I never really got into. I heard good things about it, Homeworld, and maybe even Homeworld. I think they had a Homeworld 2 as well, a sequel. But this was the first one. So it looks like a dope game, but it's just I'm not a PC gamer, so I really don't have much experience with it. Don't really have any experience with it, I should say. Number 92 is SSX3. Man, another SSX title. I don't even know. I don't even remember if I ever played SSX3. I have no idea. So, it looks like a decent snowboarding game, but I'm not into the SSX series. So, it's just not my thing. Number 93 is Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell, the first Splinter Cell game, I guess. I remember when it came out. I remember it got pretty good hype. The Splinter Cell series got some pretty big buzz, especially for the original Xbox system, as far as like that being a staple series on the original Xbox, and it being I guess one of the must-have titles, or at least something that you want to check out the original Xbox for. But I got Chaos Theory and all that. Really wasn't crazy about it. So, Splinter Cell to me is it's a franchise from the 2000s, early mid 2000s, that kind of came and went for me, that I just wasn't super crazy about. Number 94 is Quake 3 Arena. man, a lot of these titles I just never really got into. I either never owned it, never played it, and just I'm not interested in it. Quake 3 though, Arena, I want to say this one came out also on the Dreamcast. I know it's a PC title. This might have also been released on the original Dreamcast from back in the day. It's a Quake game, you know, don't really have any experience with Quake, and you know, as far as it being a multiplayer game, I've always been into the multiplayer death matches and stuff like that. So that's why I like Unreal Tournament. But between Quake and Unreal, I mean, as far as that goes, I would pick Unreal because that's what I'm most familiar with. I love that style. And Quake 3 Arena, never got into it, so can't really say much about it. Number 95 is Okami, another title that I have no interest in. When this dropped back in the day, I want to say 2006, on the PS2. That was the first initial exclusive release. I believe it also came out on the Wii later on and stuff like that. So Okami, I just wasn't crazy about it as far as like this art style and the character and all that. It got really high scores back in the day, but you know, I wasn't interested in it. It was not a game that I was so curious. Like, I have to play this game. I gotta get into it. It's like, nah. Give me God of War instead. Give me you know, FPS titles like BioShock or something like that. Give me Dead Space. You know, I'd rather play those kind of games instead of Okami. Okami seems like a decent game. It looks interesting. It looks kind of quirky and a little bit different. But at the same time, it's like even its graphics and its presentation doesn't interest me. You know, it looks like it's something for either a younger demographic or for a more like female audience. Number 96 is Fallout 3. Okay, finally a game that I actually, you know, got into. Fallout 3 was dope. I got it on the PS3. I'm not sure if I also have it on the 360. Maybe I do. But anyway, I played it on the PS3 quite extensively. Pretty good game. I quite enjoyed the heck out of it. The graphics were, you know, it got kind of muddy over time. It's one of your typical titles from the, you know, mid-late 2000s that has a very muddy looking graphics, and you know, they have brown colors and a lot of sepia tone. But that being said, it does work well for the setting, because it's post-apocalyptic type of setting. It's very you know, a lot of destroyed looking buildings and, you know, post nuclear thing going on. A lot of just post-apocalyptic, almost Mad Max-esque environments, and maybe not even Mad Max, because Mad Max feels more like in the middle of like almost like desert areas, you know, the Australian desert areas and landscape, whereas Fallout 3 is more like in the middle of the city, but just like destroyed cities, you know, and a lot of dilapidated, just, you know, broken down buildings and stuff like that. So Fallout 3 is a very good RPG. I enjoyed it for the amount of time that I played it. I did get very impatient with it after a while, because it was like, alright, I've had enough of this. I just kept getting owned by the computer, and I just got bored with, like, I believe there was a part in it where I ended up going after everybody. I mean, I ended up shooting everybody, every character, every enemy. I was in that ship thing. It was like a ship, like that was the city, was the ship, and I got so tired of it. I got so impatient. I was like, man, enough with this. Enough talking to everybody. I'm sick and tired of talking with people. I just want to blast somebody in the face. And so that's what I started doing. But there was a few characters, there was at least a couple of characters that I couldn't defeat. I couldn't, you know, get rid of them, and I wanted to, but they just kept running around. I was like, man, this sucks. And so, you know, I pretty much quit it. But for the time that I played it, it was pretty good. Like, you know, going into underground stages and stuff like that, in the sewers or whatever, where you're, you know, fighting the mutants. That was pretty cool. That's always kind of intimidating. Exploring the different areas is pretty cool. It just feels like a really big game. It feels like a huge environment, and you know, looting and all that, and collecting different items. So Fallout 3 is a really enjoyable title. And haven't played Fallout 4, not really interested in it. You know, I heard some really bad things about it, but you Fallout 3 was dope, and from everything that I understand, it was a pretty good sequel to the original Fallout series from the late 90s. The top-down 2D style. So yeah, Fallout 3 was quite enjoyable, man. Yeah, not the greatest game of all time, but it's number 96 on this list. I don't know where I would rank Fallout 3 if I ever made my top 100. But it would get a pretty good score. Alright, moving on. Number 97 is Gears 2. Okay, Gears of War 2. I kind of regret not playing this game. I remember seeing it for like $5 at like Future Shop like a few years ago. And maybe I should have picked it up back in the day, but I just never got into it. I liked the first Gears, but it wasn't enough for me to want to play Gears of War 2. It kind of like with the Halo thing, where I enjoyed the first Halo on the original Xbox. I enjoyed Gears of War, the first Gears of War on the Xbox 360. But when I finished and completed those games, it didn't make me feel like I have to play the sequels. I have to play the second, Halo 2 or Gears of War 2. It didn't make me want to play the later installments. And I think it's because I wasn't like super crazy about the story. It felt like I was doing nothing but it was just action, 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 but there was no huge payoff at the end. Like with the end of Halo, it was like, all right, there's more stuff going on, but it's like, okay, like I've had my fill. And then with Gears of War, with the end of Gears of War, you beat that final boss on that train thing, but that was pretty much it. It was like, all right, like now they're trying to set up for a sequel. Like it was almost like not a cliffhanger ending, but they have. It was obvious that they're going to set it up for part 2. Like it's not over yet. There's more enemies to come. But I felt like, all right, it's going to be more of the same. I can guarantee it. The gameplay is going to be more of the same. It's going to be more of the same environments and very similar looking things. And it's just I don't care anymore. You know what I mean? I don't want to go through Gears of War 1, but just in an upgraded, setting, in an upgraded, different environments, but like pretty much this similar gameplay. And I wasn't like heavily invested in the storyline, you know what I mean? Because it was like I just felt like I was going through the stages. Like I got to go from point A to point B to point C and D and so on and so forth, with a few of your allies getting destroyed by the enemy. So it's like whatever. Like Gears 1 was good, but Gears 2, I don't care about the storyline anymore. It's not like with God of War. Like with God of War 1 was so dope that I had to play God of War 2 to see what happens in the story and so on and so forth. And even later on as God of War progressed, like God of War 3 and Ascension, my interest in the series kind of waned a little bit because the story wasn't as good. So I think story has a lot to do with it, and investment in the character has a lot to do with it. And with the first Gears of War, while it was a good experience, it didn't get me super hooked into it. So with Gears of War 2, it didn't make me want to play it. So maybe I should have. Maybe I should have bought it way back in the day, but oh well. Number 98 is NFL 2K3. Don't care about the NFL, don't care about football, not a fan of it, don't care. NFL 2K3, do not give a you-know-what. So, it's a Sega Sports title, from Sega and all that, so, good for Sega for investing, I guess, in the NFL franchise and having that exclusive. But, they never really, what happened to them, right? What happened to the Dreamcast? They had the NFL 2K or whatever, some kind of NFL series back in the Dreamcast days, but, the Dreamcast still failed, so, it didn't really help them. Number 99 is World Soccer Winning 11-6 International. Is number 99 a winning 11 game? Like I'm supposed to care about football. Like I'm supposed to care about soccer. I do not care about soccer. Alright? I never got into it when I was young. I never played it in high school. It just wasn't a game that I was into. Who cares, man? You know what I mean? Like, I don't care. My favorite sport of all time is basketball. I love playing basketball, and I don't even like watching basketball. I don't like watching the NBA. The NBA sucks, in my opinion. I don't care about it. It hasn't been dope since, like, Michael Jordan was in it, you know what I mean, in the 90s. And then when he retired, and, like, that was the end of it for me. Like, I didn't care anymore about the NBA. Not that I was a huge fan anyway. I was more into like N1 and stuff like that, like the Professor and all that, and that street balling thing. I was more into that. I love the N1 series from the early 2000s back in the day. That was really fun to watch. But I love playing basketball. It's a really fun sport. So soccer and all that, soccer, football, baseball, all this crap, not into it. You know what I mean? I never got into it. Hockey and all that, not into it. Never got invested in it. I have no desire to play like sports, video games of sports that I don't care about in real life. And even something like basketball. I'd rather play real life basketball than a basketball video game. Even though I do like the NBA Street Series, like that's fun and everything. But forget like the NBA 2K series. Screw that. I don't care about that. So I'd rather play sports in real life, you know what I mean, as opposed to sitting around and playing soccer, a simulation on a video game. There are way more fun video games I could be playing on a console. Whether it's God of War or Tekken or Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat or anything, any other game, Dead Space, Bioshock, where it takes me to a different world instead of soccer. It's ridiculous. Give me a break. All right, number 100, the final game. Finally, we're at number 100. Wait, how long are we here? 36 minutes. Okay, that's not bad. Soul Calibur 2. And I appreciate the fact that they have the GameCube version on here. They got the Link character on there, which is probably the best one out of all of them. It is the best one, the most desirable one anyway, between the three different versions. The PS2 had Heihachi, the Xbox version had Spawn, and the GameCube version had Link. I would pick the GameCube version. I have all three of them, and the GameCube version is probably the most desirable one because it has a Nintendo exclusive character, very faithfully recreated for the GameCube exclusive, and it's dope. You can only find them on the GameCube version back in the day. I don't know. I think they re-released Soul Calibur 2 again in not too long ago. A few years ago, I think, and I don't know if those characters were brought back. They probably were for the each version, like for the PlayStation version, they brought back Heihachi probably, and so on and so forth, But Soul Calibur 2 was a good game. It is interesting to me how far it is, like super low on the list compared to the first Soul Calibur. Even though I feel like the later Soul Calibur games are technically just better games, simply because they have newer characters, they have a little bit more like customization options and stuff like that, and different modes of gameplay. So instead of Soul Calibur 1, I mean, if somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, as a fighting game fan, I would like to play a Soul Calibur game. Which game would you suggest?" And I would go, "Yeah, get Soul Calibur 5, Soul Calibur V, or Soul Calibur 4, or Soul Calibur Broken Destiny, even on the PlayStation Portable." The newer Soul Calibur games. I think Broken Destiny came out in, I want to say 2010, maybe 09, 2010, around that time. So it's been about 7-8 years, but still a lot newer than the first Soul Calibur, and newer than Soul Calibur 2. If you really must play, for the GameCube version, of course you got to get Soul Calibur 2 between the different versions of Soul 2. I would suggest that even over the first Soul Calibur. Because again, it goes back to the whole nostalgic thing of like the first Soul Calibur was very, very good, and it was really impactful for the Dreamcast as a Dreamcast exclusive. But the Dreamcast is an old system. It's done. You can't just go back to it and be like, well, you got to go play the original one. Like I would suggest a newer game, because the newer one has better graphics, more characters, more modes, more customization options, and just more additional things, instead of the first Dreamcast version that is the first one that doesn't have all that stuff, even though it was very influential when it first came out. Like I'm not going to sit here and promote the first one just because it was first, just because it got high scores back then. It was the first one, It's not like the gameplay like super drastically changed and they stripped down everything. If anything, they just kept adding more to it. They would add different things to it over the years. So Soul Calibur 2, I would pick Soul Calibur 2 over the first Soul Calibur. as far as what is a technically better game between Soul 2 on the GameCube and Soul 1 on the Dreamcast. Pick Soul 2 on the GameCube. It's got Link. You know what I mean? And it's got the great graphics, the great soundtrack, and all that, the great sound effects. So it's got all that, the great gameplay, the you know, whatever, the 8-way sidestepping system or whatever, 12 ways sidestepping. So you know, I would suggest the newer Soul Calibur games over the first one. Again, Soul 5, Soul 4 from 2008 or whatever, you know, Soul Broken Destiny and all that. So anyway, yeah, Soul Calibur 2 was a pretty good sequel. You know, it's not as well received as the first one because it's not as innovative as the first one. But it is a technically better game than the first one, meaning that it has slightly better graphics and it has new characters. You know what I mean? So Soul 2, I would pick Soul 2 over Soul 1. Because it was the first one that had really high scores, okay, it set the bar really high. But then you have an even better one with Soul 2, an even better one with Soul 4 and Soul 5 and so on and so forth. You know, they don't change around the gameplay too much, if at all, because it worked really well with the first Soul Cal. Like they have to even, you know, why change something that's not broken? Why fix it if it's not busted, if it's not broken? But then you have the better graphics with the newer games. You have the better, more additional characters and customizations and all that. You can create your own characters and the different modes and the ranking system and all that. You know, something that the original Soul Calibur, you know, it was missing features that the newer ones have. So it's like you know, choosing a really old Mario game, and then you know, I would rather have Mario 1 on the NES instead of, you know, the latest Mario game, like you know, Mario Galaxy 2, or I think Lost Odyssey is one of the newer Mario games, you know. And it's like, what would you rather have? Would you rather have the new experience, the latest one with the best graphics and all that, or the really super old game from back in the day that's not as it doesn't have the same level of quality, you know? It's like with Grand Theft Auto. You know, as good as Grand Theft Auto 3 was, Grand Theft Auto 3 was very influential. One of the most influential games of all time on the PS2. But I don't care about Grand Theft Auto 3 because I got Vice City, I got San Andreas, I got GTA 4, I got GTA 5, I got Saints Row, I got all these other games that came out after that did it even better. Technically, it might not have gotten the same. It might not be as innovative or as influential because the GTA 3, the initial one, was so influential and it was so new at the time. But later games improved upon that style and that formula that built upon it. So we got an even bigger, better game. Are you honestly going to sit there and tell me that GTA 3 is better than Grand Theft Auto 5? That GTA 3 has better graphics? You got to be kidding me. GTA 5 has better graphics. GTA 5 has the strip club. GTA 5 has all these different modes of gameplay and different things that you can do in the big city. Of course, the better graphics. Visually, it looks way better. It's got the soundtrack and all that. So I mean, with GTA 3, it's like it's a thing of the past. So it was dope for back in the day, but then now you have to accept that GTA V is a newer title that has more things going for it than the past. So anyway, I kind of went off on a tangent, but yeah. Speaking of Soul 2, yeah, Soul 2 was a good game. I don't know if I would, I don't know if being number 100, it's kind of low. Maybe, well, I mean, I enjoyed Soul 2 for what it was. You know, I thought it was a good game. The multiplayer is good, and I enjoyed it for what it was. It's just that the Soul Calibur series I've never been crazy about. When it comes to 3D fighting games and fighting games in general, I prefer other franchises and other video games, because Soul Calibur is missing blood, it's missing gore, it's missing. It doesn't have the sex appeal of Dead or Alive. No, I'm not saying that Soul Calibur doesn't have hot-looking chicks. They have characters like Ivy and Setsuka and stuff like that. Some sexy-looking female characters. But Dead or Alive has them beat by far. That DOA has way more busty-looking, beautiful, women in bikinis and all that. So they got that. Mortal Kombat has the blood and gore. They got the fatalities and blood and violence and all that. So Mortal Kombat has that over Soul Calibur. You got Tekken that has better combos and more intricate combo systems and different fighting styles for its characters. So Tekken, I think, is better in terms of gameplay. So Soul Calibur the Soul Calibur franchise itself is lacking certain things that they're not as good as the other fighting games. You know what I mean? The only thing that I really love about Soul Calibur is the multiplayer, very accessible gameplay that is. It feels fun to play, especially with another person, because it's very accessible. It's almost like it's a really easy fighting game to learn and get into. It's not like super difficult. Like, it doesn't have a high learning curve compared to other fighting games. So in that regard, it's very easy to play and really get into. But Soul Calibur to me has. I don't want to say it's an overrated fighting game series, but I feel as a fighting game fanatic that there's better fighting games than Soul Calibur. Whether it's gameplay, presentation, and everything else. Soul Calibur is a quality series. There's no doubt about it. But I feel like because so many casuals get into it, because a lot of people don't really love fighting games, and they're not into it as far as like mastering everything. There's not a lot of hardcore fighting game fanatics out there. So a lot of the casuals will love Soul Calibur because it's so easy to get into. It's such an easy casual fighting game, and it's so basic that they love it because it's so easy to play. It's almost like it's pretty much a casual fighting game. You know what I mean? It's like the Call of Duty of fighting games. Soul Calibur. As far as like playing it casually, playing it, getting into it, very basic, very easy to pick up and play. But for me, as a hardcore fighting gamer, it's like I gotta master everybody. I gotta play something like a Tekken or something like that. Or if I want something with more violence and stuff, I gotta play Mortal Kombat. Something with more sexy looking female characters, I gotta play DOA. You know what I mean? So Soul Calibur is good, but I would prefer Tekken titles over Soul Calibur, or any of the other ones like Mortal Kombat or even Street Fighter, Street Fighter Cross Tekken, even maybe even like the King of Fighters series, you know what I mean, from the 90s. Soul Calibur is good for sure, and Soul Calibur 2 on this list is a pretty good choice, especially the GameCube version. It's just that it's a lot more casual friendly than anything else. So if there's any criticism that I have, that would probably be my biggest critique of the Soul Calibur series, is that it's a little too casual friendly. But anyway, that's just my opinion. That's the top 100 video games by Metascore. I'll probably make my own list. It's gonna take a really long time for me to come up with my own 100 list, because I gotta get through so many different games and I have to rank them up in the way that I enjoyed it and everything. And I get really, really specific about it. I get really anally retentive about it, about specific details like graphics. I have to rank everything: graphics, presentation, soundtrack, gameplay, like all that stuff. The fun factor. I have to rank everything very specifically when I make my own lists, and I have to be very careful about it. I gotta make my own list definitely in the future. It's just that they take a really long time. Like, it takes forever for me to edit these videos, especially these, like my own lists, like my top 30 PS2 list took forever. It took like 2 weeks to finish. My top 30 PlayStation 3 list took forever to finish. Again, like a couple of weeks to edit and finish, because I gotta get all the images right. I gotta get all the proper pictures and all that, and the images. I gotta put it, and then I gotta edit it with the, and so on and so forth. Just a lot of editing. It takes forever to make these long, 1 hour plus, 2 hour plus videos. But anyway, my top 100 list is going to be slightly different for sure. I guarantee it's going to have even better games than the stuff in this list. This one is not that great of a list. It's just like, any of the other list challenges. It's not amazing. It only has a 30% score. Average score 30 out of 100. It has 30%, assuming it was ranked by gamers and all that, other people that saw this list. So it has over 4,700 views from listchallenges.com, and this is according to the Metacritic scores. And I don't necessarily agree with. I would say I disagreed with pretty much just about every game on this list as far as the ranking. Like 90 to 95% of it, I just did not like, because a lot of these games I'm not interested in. I don't think it's that good. And there's better games, basically, over it. So that's it for this episode of The Review Space. This has been part 4 of the top 100 games from Metascore, from listchallenges.com. And check out the channel for more videos, more lists, and all that. Subscribe. Click on the notification bell button and all that. And until next time, thanks for watching. Peace.